So you're probably seeing the title of this video right now, and you're probably scratching your head like, what does that mean? Some of you might get it. Some of you might not understand at all, but we're here today to talk about the fact that if you are supported by a BMX company, by your job, whatever it might be, you have to help that company or your job or whatever the company is bring in more money than what they are paying you or giving you in product or supporting you in whatever way. And I can understand how some people watching this might be like, man, I'm tired of hearing you talk about this. I'm tired of hearing other people talk about this. But this is important right now because everyone is talking about how much BMX is struggling, but I don't see anyone talking about how we get out of this hole that we are in. And this right here, and helping riders understand this concept, is what can help us get out of this hole. We're going down, and everything I'm trying to do is trying to help hit the brakes and get to the low point so that we can start going up the other side. And the more riders who understand this concept that they need to bring in more for the companies that they work with than the companies are investing in them, the more riders who understand that, the more quickly we can get to that going back upward motion, because that is what helps companies be successful. That's what keeps them in business at all. They have to make money to survive. And that's just the reality of life. You have to be able to make money to survive as a person, as a business, whatever. So if you're tired of hearing this, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to get people to understand and see things in a way that can help us move forward in a better business mindset as BMX. And the people who don't want to have this business mindset and, oh, we should just ride and whatever, well, then go do it. Have a full-time job. Do it. By all means, you'll probably be happier that way. But if you want to see BMX do better, we have to understand these concepts. So the idea is that if you are paid or supported by a company to the tune of $10,000, then you should, at the very least, so I'll just back up a second. You should be bringing in $100,000 of revenue for that company. That's what Joey Cobbs says. He's a former team manager of Haro, now running with DeMarcus Paul, Low Numbers BMX. He understands this side of things. And I would go so far to say, if you are bringing in $10,000 from a company in your whole entire package, he talks about what package means in here, you should be bringing at the very least $30,000 to $40,000, and Joey explains why here. It's because of margins. If you bring in, and that number sounds enormous, even $30,000 or $40,000 sounds gigantic, but the reality of it is that $30,000, $40,000 in sales equals $10,000 to $12,000-ish in actual profit that the company makes. So just to break even on the investment into you as a rider, a company has to make that much money if they're giving you $10,000 a year. And in order for companies to start to do better and start moving back up, and for this hole to be filled in and us to get out of it, it has to be more than that. So Joey talks about $100,000. And the reality of that is that even just from $100,000, I say just, it's because even from $100,000, a company is only seeing somewhere between 30 to 40,000 of that as profit from the revenue and the product that is being sold. That is massive. You think $100,000 is a lot of money. Well, they only get to see 30 to 40,000 of that because the rest of it is going into actually making these products. They are only making 30 to 40% if they're lucky. Some things are even less than that. So that is where we need people to understand how valuable it is whenever they're getting money, especially, but also clothing, product, parts, etc., from a company, because it costs them money. And they have to be able to pay for these things. That's why we see companies go away, because more money went out than they were able to bring back in. They couldn't pay the bills. They couldn't afford to bring in new product to sell it because they put the money into whatever they had to, and there was nothing left over to put it back into making more stuff. And that is what we're running into in BMX right now, is that companies have been sitting on bikes and product for so long over the effects from COVID and over ordering and those things, that some companies are gonna run into, if they haven't already, a place where they're like, where are we gonna get the money to make new stuff when we haven't been able to sell all of the old stuff yet? That's why you're seeing fire sales. It's part of why you're seeing these fire sales from companies where they're selling things at such a big discount, because they have a lot of stuff and they need the cash flow in order to keep making new stuff to keep people buying these things. And this is part of that larger conversation of the pie that is BMX only being so big, is that even if we get riders to understand this business mindset, and everyone in the perfect world is doing what they should be doing, and they're doing everything to try and bring in more money for the company, the pie that is BMX is only as big as it is. And that is why I've been trying to get people to understand that we need to focus on trying to grow this pie however we can in an ethical way or a moral way that people can live with, that doesn't cross the line of corny core or selling out too much, in a way that everybody can be happy with, so that that pie can be bigger, and that when riders do what they need to try and help bring in more than what they're given, is there's actually somewhere to get that from. And if we're reaching outside of the BMX industry, that money could come from anywhere. So ultimately, at the end of the day, it sounds shocking. It's a sticker shock value number, but it is real. If you want to get paid $10,000 from a company, and that's just to make it a round number, you should be bringing in $100,000 or more for that company, so that when they cut out all of their costs and their margins are only 30 to 40%, well, there you go. That's where you get your 10,000 plus the 20 or whatever odd thousand that they would use to keep the company afloat, with paying other riders, paying people who work at the company, and paying for everything else that they have to in order to make things happen. And I realize too that the math could be a little bit weird there. So it would be $100,000. That means 30 to 40,000 of it is profit. 60 to 70,000 of it goes into creating these products and things. So that extra little bit over top of the 10,000 would go to new things in developing new products and things that aren't covered under the margins that are already existing for an existing product. So it's just a reality of business and how things have to work, even at your job. You go to your job and some people complain about, well, I do this and I know that this thing that I'm making for them makes so much more money than what they're paying me. Well, that's because it has to. It has to, in order for them to do all of the things that they need to do as a business and a company to keep you having a job. If it was just, I make this thing and then they sell it and then I get my share of the profit from that is more than what I'm making now in my mind, that's the way you go out of business. So I really, really hope by having these types of conversations and getting this information out here, we can help people to flip that switch in their brain that helps them to understand things from a business perspective versus just a riding bikes perspective. And we can all help BMX by understanding how things work, at least a little bit from the business side of things, and try to move the needle upward and keep that roller coaster slowing down so that it gets to the bottom and then can work its way back up. So This is a little bit shorter of a segment from the Joey Cobbs podcast, but you can go check out the whole entire thing now. It is live on my channel. I have a link in the description down below, and hopefully this can help some people. And check out Low Numbers BMX as well. That's everything that Joey and DeMarcus Paul are working on now with the Burrow Breaker Rally. Anyways, let's get to Joey Cobbs talking about, if you bring in 10,000 yourself from a company, you should be bringing in 100,000 for them. Let's go.
If you want $1,000 a month, that means, you know, you should be bringing in roughly $120,000 of sales to that company per year to pay for your place.
Yeah.
People go, what? That's nuts. Like, you're nuts for thinking that or whatever. But the reality is like those. So like, let's just make it around 100,000, right? Say for instance, you bring in $100,000 and you want $10,000 a year. You want $10,000. So the company needs to make $100,000. Companies, generally hard good companies, frame companies, bike companies, they struggle. They want to make 30% on their sale.
Yeah.
So out of that $100,000 of sales, their goal is to keep 30 grand. And out of that 30 grand, you want 10. And so now they have 20 grand, you took 10, and that's what they're meant to keep the entire company afloat on.
Yeah.
And so you have to, of course, you extrapolate that for all the products, but the point is like, you know, you might think, oh, you're making 100 grand. How come you can't pay me 10? It's like, well, no, I'm only making 30 and I'm about to give you a third of it.
Yeah.
And that's if you're bringing in the 100 grand. If you're not bringing in 10 times the money, then you're probably costing them. They're probably negative. Having you on the team is probably costing them money. And then what sense does that make from a business side? Oh, I have this place on this team, but really they pay me $10,000 a year. Maybe I sell 2 or 5 grand worth of product. So I'm costing them, you know, $5,000 and not even considering their margins. You know what I mean? So it's like,
yeah,
that is unsustainable. So like that to me means that you have a target on your back, because if somebody comes in and wants to clean house, they go, oh, we're paying this guy 10 grand. I don't think he's bringing in 100 grand.
Yep.
Let's get rid of him. But there are the people that you're like, no, between their reputation or their pull in the sport or their influence and their signature product and, you know, the reach that they give us if they get involved in our projects, they're way worth the money. There are some people that we would consider like a slam dunk worth the money.
Yeah.
Because of how much exposure and how much traction they're able to get. So to say, oh, 10 times, it's like that's just the unfortunate side of the business. It's like, and I know companies wish they made more than 30% off their sales, but like that's just it. That's what they make.
Right. And you also got to consider on top of that person isn't just getting money, they're getting parts when they need them, totally. Clothes and so the whole thing that what you just said boils down to is that it all costs money. Everything you get from that company, whether it's direct money or parts or clothes or it's sent somewhere, all of it costs money, and you have to be able to bring more in for them than what they're giving to you.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's essentially, man, I just like, yeah. So that's exactly right. All of that costs money. When we would put our contracts together at Haro, we would put in product support. That was a value. That was a line item.
Yeah.
It was generally, what would it be? You know, it was their salary, video contingency, product support. Sometimes they might have product incentives. So they might get paid, you know, $200 extra to run a certain part. All those, and then, and all of those things would add up to your package price. And that's how we would budget for athletes was based off of was the overall package that included the cost of your product as well. And so, you know, yeah, right. I mean, that's just the nature of it. If you're going to get into sponsorship, then it's a business thing. Yep. And now we're looking at it from a business perspective, and don't get mad. Just know that's how it's paid. You know, like if a company wants to pay a rider $10,000 a year, well, they're going to need to at least bring in, you know, they're going to have to at least bring in $30,000 or whatever, $30 or $40,000 just to actually pay you,
Right.
without going in the hole. And then they're going to need to bring in substantially more to actually benefit from your sponsorship. That's just, I mean, and again, that's more for BMX core brands. I mean, if you're riding for like a random internet drink company or something, you know, they might be looking at you to just get in front of more people who could potentially buy their drinks, but it might not be quite so tangible, your value in those instances.
It's a brand awareness thing.
I think most riders are trying to go for like core brands right off the jump, or, you know, anyways, it's like first sponsors, you know, or like first paying sponsors.